Welcome to the 293 Code Podcast. Today's episode is accountability.
Let's talk about it.
I kind of jacked that word up a little bit.
You did a little bit, but you know what I'm saying? But it's in your own swag. It's in your own swag. Let's talk about accountability.
Yes, let's get into it.
The main key to accountability, I feel like, is you have to look at yourself in the mirror and start asking yourself, when am I going to hold myself accountable for my own actions?
True.
Because, when you're dealing with mental health, like I said, when it comes to the thing I say a lot is when you get to the root of the cause, you find key factors of what's wrong, what leads you to where you are today as far as like within your own self. But part of that is when you're going to hold yourself accountable. And what I mean by that is as far as doing your self-work and your self-care.
Yeah.
Because, sometimes people don't really put that in as a factor because it is so easy to blame everybody else for what happened to you, what's going on in your life. You know what I'm saying? But when do people really sit down and face the fact like, hey, I'm old enough now. When am I going to take responsibility to be able to start working on me?
Well, if they don't see it, they don't see nothing wrong and how they contribute to some of the factors that's going on in their life, they're not going to take accountability, especially when you're in the victimizing mode. Should I say? No,
you're absolutely right.
Because when you start doing your own healing process, right? I feel like, and I'm not talking about just you doing it on your own. You're actually, going to therapy, getting the proper tools to do it and actually sitting with yourself. I mean, a lot of shit come up.
A lot. Because, have you ever just sat there, when you go to therapy? And I know for me, for the longest, when my therapist would ask me like, hey, Bonnie, what is it that you want? And the only thing that would come to mind is I could give you this fantasy of what I wanted my life to be. It was a fairy tale. Mm-hmm. I want to be happy. I want everybody around me to be happy, also healthy. I want to be able to wake up every morning and smile. That's not reality. That's not real life. But the thing of it was I had so many fears that I needed to work on, so much trauma that I needed to work on, and I didn't know how to get it started right away, right? So I walked around with that fantasy in my head, but the part that I was lacking was the accountability to get it started. Mm-hmm. Because it's easy when you start working on yourself and start working on your own trauma that you already know it's going to be scary. You already know it's going to be ups and downs. You know what I'm saying? And you're already trying to reach for the fairy tale where it's like, oh, I'm fixed. There's no such thing as being fixed when it comes to mental health. You know what I'm saying?
No, it's not.
It's an everyday struggle, but every day is a different day. Mm-hmm. But the problem of the fact is that, I forgot that piece of holding myself accountable. It was like, I thought, well, hey, I'm doing the work. That should be good enough. But when it comes to actually doing the work, you really got to go in, just like throw yourself in on the deep end and be like, okay, what? I'm going to be able to address whatever come my way. Now, not saying that sound easy and it sounds simple, but it's not. Because, you get a curveball to the right, curveball to the left. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes you feel like you're about to jump over the fence, but that's the work.
True.
And then it came to a point where I had to realize every time I sat on that couch that it was like, I never wanted to be called a victim. Because I'm just like, I'm not a victim, but this person, that person, this, that happened. But I'm not a victim. So I put up the wall. You see what I'm saying? But the accountability was the day that my therapist asked, so what are you going to do about it? When are you going to let these walls come down and we start working on each piece one by one? Well, that was kind of harder to do when you already done built up this world where it's not necessarily everybody's fault, but it fit in place of, well, this is just how I am because of this over here.
That's true.
So you think that like, I'm not blaming anybody. And if I'm not the victim, then you feel like you don't need to change because you have that underlying protection. Mm-hmm. But then I had to realize like, oh, wait a minute, hold up. I have to hold myself accountable for my actions. But it's okay to hold myself accountable as long as I'm still doing the work.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But before I was able to do the work and work on myself and tackle those fears, tackle the nightmares, tackle the suicide thoughts. Before I could do any of that, it was just like, this is just how I am. So it was no accountability.
It's almost like when you tell yourself, I'm not, I had A, B, C happen to me, but I'm not a victim.
Right.
Why not recognize, okay, I was a victim, but in order to move forward, I have to see, look at it, the whole glass.
But the reason why, like you just said, the reason why you was like, I'm not a victim. Mm-hmm. The reason why you say that because I used to say that all the time, because your mind go to, well, I'm not weak.
Yeah.
I got through it. But you know what? When you use the word victim, that's what come up. You know, for me, that's what came up. Victim, you weak.
Passive, scared.
Right. That's considered weak.
You know, just very fragile.
Right.
So all the, like, if you look up the definition of like all those definitions, all the words that I said, fragile, weak, it falls under victim.
And so, you know what? Some people love being a victim because they can feed off that. But then some people have the mentality, well, I'm not a victim. I got through it, but you ain't dealt with nothing. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? So it's just like, what do you call yourself at the end of the day?
So you're still a victim.
You're still a victim, but you know what? You in denial about it.
It's easier to say, I'm not a victim. It's like training your mind. I'm not a victim. If I train my mind and say, I'm not a victim, I'm not a victim, then you'll start looking at yourself not a victim. But then all that shit that happened to you, it creates a different type of person for you.
Yeah, you end up turning into a madhouse pretty much, because you know what? You get that underlying built up fear. Mm-hmm. You angry. Mm-hmm. You know, you want to cry deep down inside, but you got to put on that stone cold face. You got to bring out the mask. Mm-hmm. You got to put it on because you don't want nobody to see that side of you, because you felt like you done told yourself, hey, this is who I am. This is what I built myself up to be. So I got to carry this right here, because that's what you don't let everybody see.
So it's almost like you disassociate from...
You disassociate from your problems. You disassociate from who you are as a person. Yeah.
So it's just like, if you remind yourself you're not a victim, it makes you like forget. Like, I see some people, I'm just going to give small examples, no names, but when people go through a traumatic event, and that can be anything, abuse, it can be, rape, anything, they quickly, like you said, they throw up that victim, I'm not a victim, but then turn around, you disassociate and you suppress. There you go. That's what I'm looking for. Suppress that trauma.
And I'm gonna give you a good example. Mm-hmm. Since we talking about accountability. So as everybody should know by now, I was hospitalized, and I'm gonna tell you the one thing you see. Now, when people do their intake and they come in and you're already on the floor, and you never know when people are going to get released and stuff like that. Sometimes you get those patients that come in and they're standoffish because they looking like, I ain't going to be here long, or they're in denial because they don't want to show the weak side of it. You know what I'm saying? Everybody do it when they first get in there, because you're just thinking like, I'm not going to be here long. Or you thinking like, I don't know when I'm going to get out, or you trying to get out that day, right? Regardless, it's one of the three. So basically, it's easy to pinpoint when you know a person that's really struggling and they just kind of like, fake it till you make it kind of. Right. Because the thing of it is just that you don't realize once you go through your intake and you on that floor and them doors shut, and it's like, they got to have a key card to let you in and out. You don't realize until after all that happened, then by either that evening or that afternoon, when you settle down and you think about it, everybody that's behind those closed doors is the same. You know what I'm saying? You have to really come to realizations like, we're not victims. We all as one, because when you have to have like the counseling group sessions and all that stuff that you have to do, it's like everybody's kind of looking around the room at each other like, I wonder, what's going on with this person and that person. But you can kind of pinpoint and tell who you got similarities with just because of body language, how people move, because you know what? There's a lot of similarities, even though you may not know that person's story. Right. Okay. You know what I'm saying? But it's like, when you go to the hospital, now the institution is totally different. You know what I'm saying? It's more of a free mindset. When I was in the institution, the thing of it is that like you go in there and you just like, okay, let me see who I'm gonna be able to click with as far as like where we're gonna be on the same page. You know what I'm saying? Because by then, when you get to the institution, Mark, you already know like, look, either I'm gonna get my shit together, or I'm gonna start, working on myself, or this about to be my life with the ups and downs and blaming everybody and not trying to get it together for a say.
Right,
you know what I'm saying?
Right.
So it was more like the institution was more uplifting because you had people in there who was really like talented and had stuff going for them.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, the accountability piece was what was coming back, kind of like stabbing you, like poking at you, like, okay, look, am I going to stay stuck in this one place and let this overtake me? Or I'm going to start gradually moving and carry it with me. But then as I walk along, start picking everything off so that my shoulders can be light and not heavy. You see what I'm saying? But it's like sometimes it takes people to get into those places so they can take that mask off for a second, breathe and realize like, you know what? Maybe it's not everybody. Maybe it's me. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And I'm not saying it's like 50-50 or 80-20 or anything like that, but it has to take a part where you want to deep down inside be like, you know what? I have to come to grips that there is no such thing as happiness. I had to literally tell myself, and it took me literally like 7 years to figure that part out, because I was feeding off, I want to be happy. I didn't know nothing else. I just wanted to be happy. I got tired of waking up depressed. You see what I'm saying? I got tired of waking up like,
wait. So you're saying there's no happiness?
Okay, y'all, for disclosure, like, this is my point of view. Like, no, you know what I'm saying?
No, I just want to clarify that.
Yeah, for me, it was, I suffer from severe depression. So there are times where I'm just like, happiness isn't real. Because see, and the reason why I think like that is because the way I view happiness and the way you may view it is totally different. See, for me, happiness is one of those places where you go to and it's like you get there, hey, your world is set up perfect. Once you hit that happy mark, everything's going good for you. You no longer got to worry about anything. Life is just trucking along. But see, I've seen so much negativity in my own mind when it comes to suffering from depression. It's like, I can't escape that. So I don't know what happiness is. So you may see me sometimes with a smile on my face. Hell, sometimes, you know what I'm saying? I don't even know if that's even real. I question myself about it. Because when you have that emotional defect where it's just like, what did I say wrong to people? And people looking at me half crazy like, dang, that was mean. What you mean? Because see, I'm stating stuff not from the adulthood of me, but the childhood of trying to express when you have to keep your mouth closed. So stuff may come out wrong, but it means something totally different. But the emotion is not there yet all the way.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
So it just kind of like, once again, that accountability, but still understand like, what did I say wrong? I said what I said, and it, it's black and white. But if you missing the emotional side of it, it's like, nah, that came out wrong. That's mean as hell. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Just like with the happiness piece. That's why I said that's how I see it. Everybody got a different, definition of happiness. Just like people have a definition of trauma. You know what I'm saying? Everybody go through different stuff. Just like with mental health, there's different categories for each one.
Right. Okay.
So it's a process, just like with accountability. You can get diagnosed with all this stuff, and that takes a process of being able to recognize like, okay, this is what I'm dealing with. The next phase is like, how am I going to deal with it? But, people go about that wrong. I know I did. I'm thinking like, okay, I got all these diagnoses. Look, how are we going to fix it? I'm thinking put a Band-Aid on it. It's going to heal up. I'm be good to go. I'm about to be happy. I was wrong.
Yeah. I just feel like there's a lot of layers. Like last week when started working on childhood trauma, and of course I'm talking about my childhood memories and the things that happened to me,
right?
And then my therapist said, don't get me wrong, Charity, but all I hear is victim. I'm like, what? He said, when are you going to take accountability for you?
Right.
And I had to sit with that. Honestly, I had to sit with that and think about it, because I never thought about it. I know these things happen to me. And then he says, well, that was part of my homework. Go and think about it. And then I realized, why am I, all these things did happen to me, and it did create create a lot of trauma for me, and it kind of intercept and like kind of made me choose who I choose,
right,
based off relationships and my relationship with people. Then I realized, like, damn, I didn't take accountability. Then I was like, I started to dig deep, and I was like, what the fuck? Why haven't I not taken accountability for some of my actions? And then I realized maybe because I don't want them to go away, because it's just a reminder of what I don't want.
Well, it could be that too. And then it could be that, if you don't want it to go away, it's because you already built a part of yourself that made you feel like I got through it and I'm strong.
Yeah, that's the comfort part.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
Because I'm used to it. But I can tell that now, the older I get, I'm craving for some healing.
Right.
But I realized, like, stuff with, like, the problems that I have with my grandmother too.
Right.
Like, I'm afraid to let that go, because that means, am I going to have to let my grandmother go?
Yeah, that's deep. Because, I mean, the thing of it is, it's like that when you lose somebody that you feel like you needed to talk to one last time before before she passed away. It's like when you working on your childhood trauma and you working on healing, or if you working on grieving, there's always going to be a part of you that feels like, dang, I regret not saying this, or I regret not sticking up for myself. I regret not having that power enough to be able to know who I need to be. I regret not knowing my worth.
Right.
And it bothers you as you get older.
No, it does.
You know what I'm saying? Because, when you build that wall up and you build up that armor to be like, you know what? I was torn down when I was little. I was torn down when I was, early adulthood or teenage years, to where once you tell yourself, like, you're not going to allow anybody else to tear you down. Once you build that up, you become timid and cold. And so then after that, you don't let nobody get to you, because you remind yourself that pain that you went through, or those moments that you didn't stick up to for yourself. And then you be like, you know what? You start seeing everything. It's either black and white. It's really no gray.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what people don't seem to realize, like, I had to learn the same thing. Like, you can't go through life living like that.
No, you can't. When you're young, you like, oh, this is who I am. That's young-minded thinking.
Right.
But as you get older and, people start dying around you, you start losing friends, family, loved ones. Like, you see things different. And not only that, there's a hunger for some change, and it's not in a negative way, but you want positive change.
Right.
You can't move forward with your life, your career, or just, people say, well, I'm going to be successful. I've seen people make it. Yeah, but it still creates bad relationships.
Yeah.
So, behind closed doors, in front of everybody, you make a lot of money. You're successful. Everybody talks about you. But behind closed doors, you're afraid and you're alone, and you're still dealing with that inner child.
Yeah. And I mean, it eats you alive. And that's the thing that people don't realize. Like, when you go through so much trauma in life and you go through your own mental health struggles and you facing reality of who you really are, or trying to face the reality of who you want to become. Because, what I'm saying, it's an identity crisis too.
Right. Yeah.
And what I mean by that is, it's just like, you have to tear down the old you and build a new you, but a healthy version of you. But it has to be authentic, not what everybody else want to see.
Exactly.
Something that you're comfortable with, and you say, this is who I am.
Right.
And you know what? It take a while to figure that out. You know what I'm saying?
And not everybody gonna like the new you. And
they're not gonna like it.
And what I learned too is, like, take accountability when you start healing, is that people are not gonna like you, and it's not because of you, it's because you're becoming a different person. You're no longer that toxic person.
Right.
So when you're doing your healing, you realizing, like, the people around you that you used to have fun with, dance with, and whoever the case may be, they no longer serve a purpose for you.
Right.
And don't get me wrong, you care for them or love them dearly, but it's almost like, I heard this on TikTok, like, it's almost like you can't, once you start doing your healing journey, trying to go back to that ain't the same. Trying to hang with those same people is not the same. You start seeing stuff. It's like a bad chicken.
Yeah.
Once you have a good taste of, prime example, a good watermelon.
Yeah.
With the black seeds.
Yep.
Right? Sweet, juicy, just perfect. It has all the juice in the world. But when you try to go back to that seedless, not juicy, soggy watermelon, it hits different.
It hit hella different.
Even in relationships, having sex with somebody who unhealed and you working on your healing journey, busting a nut ain't the same. Like, I'm just gonna be honest. The sex ain't the same because when you were having sex with that person, you both were unhealed.
Yeah.
So everything was so intense, and it was just like, but then when you trying to have that same sex with that person, it ain't the same.
But you know what comes to that though? It's just that, like, if you don't hold yourself accountable for stuff, you can't hold the person that you with accountable for theirs.
No.
And the thing of it is that, like, instead of holding each other accountable, or holding yourself accountable, what happens is you end up trying to caretake for the other person who could be toxic, right. And you taking care of their needs so they don't be angry at you and mad at you, that you forget about yourself. And then when it's time for you to take care of yourself, they may turn around and call you selfish.
Oh yeah. For sure. Because there's boundaries in play. People don't, right. Unhealed people and toxic people don't like boundaries. And when you start putting boundaries up, and the boundaries really is, it's really there for you.
Yeah. You're right. You have to put boundaries up for yourself. Most people think boundaries are only set for other people. No, it's set up for you too.
It's to keep you safe.
It really is. But at the same time, when it comes to boundaries, you have to think about, like, your needs and what you want. And it's hard because boundaries can be tricky. The reason why is because, like, you could be doing good by yourself, but then, like you say, when you get around other people may have, like, a different course for you. And what I mean by course is, like, take you in another direction. You know what I'm saying? And you have, like, some people gaslight you. Some people want to manipulate the situation. Or people seeing you doing good, they want to throw you off. Or if people see you trying to stay on the straight and narrow and they struggling with themselves, they're trying to see how consistent you're going to be. Right, so when it comes to doing your work and holding yourself accountable, it's the only person that's going to be your number one fan is yourself. You don't need validation from anybody else because it's your work.
Yeah, it's your work. And at the end of the day, they ain't going to know how hard you working.
Yeah, you know what? When you working on yourself, you don't need nobody else to praise you for that work because people don't realize how challenging it is unless they going through it themselves, because everybody journey, everybody challenge is different. But at the same time, it's like you got to make sure you have that support group that really understand and listen, because, like, when you holding yourself accountable and stuff, sometimes people are trying to be like, you too hard on yourself. You know what I'm saying? They're just like, I know my therapist tell me that a lot. She's like, Bonnie, you too hard on yourself. But then at the same time, I feel like, hey, just being sports minded, like, I got to compete for myself.
Right.
But then at the same time, when you go through those struggles of, like, self-worth, knowing who you are, getting over daily challenges, it is difficult. You know what I'm saying? Some days are better than others.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
But what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to, there's times where I'm just like, you know what? I ain't going nowhere today. I ain't right. I'm not right. And I'll just isolate, or I'll just text through the phone because I don't want to talk to nobody, but when there's days where I know I got to go out and about, I try to prepare myself. Because I want to be around people that I'm comfortable enough to be like, you know what? This is me. Take it or leave it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because sometimes, when you get out in public, actually, you could be having a bad day. And sometimes people will be like, hey, so what's wrong with you or whatever? And you just try to be respectful and be like, you know what, just having the day ain't a good day. And, sometimes people want to fish around and be like, stop asking me. I know you want to know what's going on, but you ain't ready for my truth.
Right.
Because sometimes people just want to be nosy, but then when you start really telling them what's going on with you or whatever, they shut down and be like, oh shit, maybe I should have never asked. Or they start saying the wrong thing. Oh, well, you're strong. You're going to get through it. Don't say those. Those are triggering. Yeah. Because if you really don't know somebody's daily struggle and they really holding themselves accountable, saying this is the only way I know how to show up today for myself and actually, like, be self-aware of what's going on in their own mind to try to tackle those issues. If you don't know what to say, don't say nothing at all.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Just be aware, say, hey, and keep it pushing.
Right. No, absolutely. Like, just say, hey, and keep it pushing.
For real.
Because, sometimes people just don't want to hear what other people got going through. They just trying to be nosy. You're absolutely right. And it's just, definitely take accountability for yourself. Like, I didn't, I'm still working on that because we worked on it last week.
Yeah.
And so, I'm digging more into that. And the more I dig, the more I'm like, son of a bitch.
You be like, here we go again.
Yeah, like, damn it, I did not take accountability for that. And, now I look at things different. Like, I definitely, in my younger days, I did not take accountability for my action. I just said, everybody did this to me and people did this. And it was the honest truth is, why talk about it? Like you said, people don't want to hear about it. You know what I'm saying? They ask you what's wrong and they only doing it to be nosy. So I never talked about, my problems. I always said, you know what, my problem's not important. So I would always put me on the back burner. See, I didn't take accountability and telling myself, you are important.
No, you're right. I mean, I think about it like, what I'm saying, now that, I've been more in tune with my own work. Mm-hmm. I think about the times where it was like there's people in my life where they needed me to listen and they needed that support, but I couldn't give it to them.
Right.
I tried, but you know what? I didn't have on the right mask for it to fit. Because at the times when people was talking to me about important stuff, you know what I'm saying, my mind disassociated. Because it was kind of like part of my trauma. So how am I going to support somebody else when I'm struggling, but they don't know I'm struggling like that? They know I have mental health problems, but you know what? Who all don't like say, oh, I got depression and this and that going on. But, people take it with a grain of salt sometimes.
They really do.
And then it comes to the fact where, when people start being like, you don't care, you're selfish. And it's just like, no, I do care. I'm not selfish, but I can't really explain that to you right now because my actions can't show it. Because I'm not healed. Mm-hmm. You see what I'm saying? No, so you know what? I can hold myself accountable in those moments, because the thing of it is like, they're right. But at the same time, I don't know how I can give you what you need if I can't even give it to myself.
Yeah.
And the thing of it is, in those times, you can't explain that if that person is already mad at you because you're not giving them what they want or what they need. But at the same time, it's like, how fair is it? Because most people think they already got their life figured out from point A to point Z. That ain't real.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you right now, that is like, if that was the case, I'd be in a different place. I'd be in a different headspace. But, just learning, I'm going to be honest with you, even I'm surprised. I'm like, fuck.
Yeah, I mean,
it does. Especially when you're doing your healing work.
Yeah.
And let me put this out here because a lot of people, there's a negative and there's a positive that are put out there about healing. And we already touched up on that. Like, a lot of people say, well, it's just going to fix you. It doesn't fix you. The thing is, you start getting the tools you need to deal with life.
Yeah.
Deal with what life throws at you, right? So you're always going to have some issue go on. But the thing is, how you deal with it says a lot. And I think for me, I dealt with a lot of shit because I didn't deal with my trauma or my emotions or my feelings. And I didn't take accountability for it. I quickly went to the fear, which leads to anger.
Yep.
And so a lot of that came out in anyone that knows me. It came out on the court. It came out in other ways. And so, that I'm looking at is just like, shit, yeah, I didn't take accountability for that. I knew at the time, as a child, I was angry. And that's all we know, right? At that type of emotion. It's like I'm angry, but I didn't realize, or nor did I have anyone to sit down and talk to about my feelings or like, well, it leads to fear. Like, what are you scared of?
Yeah, because I think, whoever was around, they didn't have their own tools to know, about fear and what was going on. So it was just like, if you had nobody around you to teach you those things and like tell you like it's okay to talk and it's okay to be vulnerable and open up about how you feel, you're not going to do it.
That's true.
I mean, because it's a long shot to be able to have that courage, especially as a kid. Hell, even as a teenager, it didn't matter.
Yeah.
Well, for some people now, even as a grown as adult, if you haven't done your work or have the tools, it's like you're not going to do it.
No, you're not. You're going to put that aside. You're going to say, that's who I am. And then back in the day, everybody goes off of horoscopes. That was what it was.
Oh, yeah. In the newspaper.
The reason why you like that.
Yeah. And they go through the whole week. Or you can call Miss Cleo. It was like the 1-800 number, Miss Cleo on the phone, and she'll tell you your whole life story. And it was like, what, $2.99 or something like that.
Oh, no. Miss Cleo was $4.99.
It was $4.99?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So it just kind of like, we would go off, in the South also, it's like all these superstitions and stuff like that. You go off all that stuff to tell you, to dictate like how you going to be as a person.
Yeah.
Because that's what we was looking for. We was looking for somebody to tell us what we was going to do. And if it sounded good and people was hyping you up and you had that hype man that sat on the porch and never left, you know, to go do anything throughout the day, you believed it.
Yeah.
Because you had your own little circle telling you, oh yeah, you're going to do this, you're going to do that. And you sitting here believing it, but you ain't putting in the work in anything.
We'll go to a psych in a second. Tell me how my 5 years are going to go.
Right.
You know, like you said, Cleo, and we kind of, you know, we all knew Cleo wasn't that, you know.
But you know what? You still believed in it when you felt like you had nothing else. You felt like you had nothing else going on in your life. You was going to believe it because you needed hope from somebody.
Yeah.
If the neighborhood wasn't giving you hope, if your family wasn't giving you a hope, and if it's a stranger off the street that's giving you hope and guidance, you're going to listen to that stranger.
Yeah, because we're always looking and trying to find it somewhere instead of just finding it in us, you know. Like I said,
but also there's another side to that too, though, because I mean, I don't know about you, but for me, it was just like I didn't like all the praise. I didn't, you know, I was really timid. I didn't want that. I just wanted to be invisible. I used to want to be invisible as a kid. I guess because it was just like, you know.
Well, that's your trauma, though.
Yeah, it is, but it was just like at the same time, it was just like I just wanted to be untouched. I didn't want to be seen. So I didn't like all the praise when it came to sports and stuff like that. I was really shy with it. You know what I'm saying? So I just like, man, I felt like, what would it feel like, you know, if I didn't play sports and I was just a regular person? Yeah, I'm a regular person, but you know what I'm saying? Like no accolades or anything like that. How my life would have been. I probably would have been more invisible and not known.
Right.
You know, and it just kind of like, when you think about that all the time, it's just kind of like, I think about it now, I'm just like, man, that's really sad. You know?
I think I was the same way too. I didn't like to be the center of attention.
But did you ever think about it like this? My therapist told me one time, she was just like, so basically she was like, do you feel like now that you self-sabotage things because you don't want to deal with knowing your worth?
Oh, absolutely. Like I told you all last week, I barely made it to college.
Yeah.
And that wasn't, you know, I wasn't smart or anything like that. You know, I was an outstanding player. It's just, you know, just being the center. It almost felt like I was put on a pedestal and I felt like I shouldn't have been put on a pedestal.
Right.
Because I just wanted to be a player.
But you didn't allow yourself, you know what? I totally understand where you're coming from because I felt the same way. Like, I don't have to be seen.
Right.
But you know what? That's part of the trauma of like, you could have gave that to somebody else, or it's like, I don't have to be recognized for it. I know what I did.
Right. Like, I don't want to sit there and talk about like how many points I scored or rebounds or how many blocks I stopped with soccer, you know, like stuff like that, or track and field. I didn't feel the need to
brag about it.
You know, I know why I was playing sports. It was to get away. It was to deal with my emotional, what I couldn't say in words. I said it on the court, on the field, or on track. You know, it showed how I played. It showed. And eventually it came out a little much because I didn't deal with it.
But did you ever feel like this though? Like, I felt like, nah, you don't want to brag about your accolades. You don't want to brag about what you're doing. You let other people talk about you. And I felt like it would be like karma or a curse if you bragged about yourself, because then it put more pressure on you for the next year.
Yeah. I didn't, well, that too, but I didn't like people even talking about me, because this is what I used to think. And, you know this, being a star athlete, as soon as the paper hits, like people want to know about you.
Yeah.
And then it goes, they not just want to know about you on the court or whatever sport you're playing. They want to know about who you are as a person. And that was uncomfortable for me.
Yeah.
Because number one, I knew what was going on behind closed doors, you know, emotionally, you know, and I was struggling. No one knew. And, you know, they eventually started knowing with my temper.
Right.
But, you know, I didn't want to be seen like that. I just wanted, because I didn't want my life story to get out. I didn't want them to know that, you know, that I was struggling, that I had all these problems going on. I didn't want that, because I knew if that was the case, then they would have to speak with family members. And that's what I was afraid of, because my family, we're not used to, talking about the positives.
Right.
We're used to talking about the negatives all the time. And don't get me wrong, I love my family to death, but we have so much trauma that we focused on that so much. And that was my fear of, if people found out what goes on behind closed doors or what really happens or who I really am, then that's a struggle for me. And they did, and that's when shit went to awry. That's when I couldn't, deal or cope with it anymore at that point, because I had other players.
And that's a part of life that is just kind of like, it hits you hard.
Yeah.
Because you do try to cover that side up, because it's just like, you have to put on a different mask to show, like, when I go to school, I got to be that kid where I'm manable. Mm-hmm. Don't get a teacher, no problem. I'm going to do what I'm told. Mm-hmm. And, that was it. So you thinking like, when they instill in you, if you do right by people, people will do right by you. That's saying that went from sugar to shit. Mm-hmm. I mean, back then in generational times, back then, yeah, it probably was true to a certain extent.
Right.
But you know what? Growing up into something like that, and it's just like, nah, you can't look at stuff like that anymore.
Nah. Mm-mm.
You have to know how to put yourself first. And I think that's something that, like, when you learn how to put yourself first, it's kind of tricky at first.
Right.
Because I mean, like, when most people say, well, put yourself first, you think about like, well, what you mean? Like, do I supposed to just be like me, and don't think about other people? You know what I'm saying? When you ain't never done it before, you got to figure it out. Like, how do I put myself first?
And especially with a trauma background, that's hard to do. And I don't know about you, but I know for me, like, trying to accept those accolades that people would talk about, they're like, oh my God, you know how they put, star athletes on pedestals and stuff.
Right.
And it's just like, part of me used to be like, hey, but, I have a teammate that did this, or, my teammate did this. And they would do interviews and I would say, yeah, my team, we're doing it as a team. My teammate is the reason why I'm here.
Right.
So I couldn't accept that. It was uncomfortable for me to accept those positive comments that were coming in.
Right.
If you said, like, today you played like shit, man, fuck you. You know what I'm saying?
Right, yeah.
I can accept that more. And that's a toxic trait.
Yeah. I
can accept that more than them feeding me the positivity and talking about my accolades. That's very uncomfortable. Well, at that time, it was very uncomfortable.
Especially like if people say, hey, you had a good game. Don't go away, you didn't have no good game.
Fuck us up.
It makes you mad, because it's just like, don't tell me something that's not true.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I didn't have a good game.
Right.
And if you holding yourself accountable saying, I didn't have a good game, and somebody telling you like, oh yeah, you did, it's just like, nah, 2 + 2 don't equal 4. That equals 7.
Yeah.
And that's it goes back to the part of like, when you holding yourself accountable for stuff and then somebody trying to make you feel better. And it's just like, I'm a grown ass adult. I don't need you to try to make me feel better. Mm-hmm. If I'm holding myself accountable by how I feel, what I'm doing, and I know what need to be done, don't try to twist my words or change the narrative to try to make me feel good.
Yeah, I think people are really, back then, they were really good at changing the narrative. Like,
because they're uncomfortable.
Yeah, you can have a shitty ass game, or they'll be afraid that, like, you play great, or, you have like fucking outbursts and they tell you it's okay. Like, tell me about myself.
Well, just like, when you try to have like real conversation with people these days, like now it's hard to find people where you can be just open and raw about conversations about how you feeling, just like life in general. Because nobody's life is perfect.
No.
You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. But it's hard to find individuals who want to sit at the table with you and say, like, hey, let's have this talk. Mm-hmm. How you doing today? Be real. Be open. It's hard to find people like that, because sometimes people may sit at that table and they want to sugarcoat. Mm-hmm. And I'm just like, nah, if you're going to sugarcoat it, get up. Get up from the table. Mm-hmm. Diabetes are not welcome here. Get up from the table. I want you to come and sit at that table and be organic. You know what I'm saying?
But it's hard for them to be organic when they're not organic with themselves.
Right. And it's not like, we sitting here saying like, oh, well, we better than other people because we're doing our work and we know what it takes. Nah, that ain't nowhere near the case.
Nah, I ain't gonna lie. Healing, trying to work on yourself, like doing the healing, actually getting deep into the cuts, because those wounds have scars on it, right? What happens when you rip a wound open, take the scar off, it starts to bleed again.
Yep. I mean, I got so many wounds open up right now. I'm like, it's to the point where I had to close some back up because I got to take one at a time.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? About to become anemic over it. Because you know what? When you start ripping off the Band-Aids, you know what I'm saying? One thing that you have to learn is like you can't overwhelm yourself.
Yeah, you're right.
Because if you get fixated on like, okay, I'm going to therapy and I'm talking about it, you forgot about the part. You can talk about it all day and see some people think like because they talk about stuff that they're healing. No, you got to talk about it and you got to literally deep down dive into that situation.
Yeah, no.
You know what I'm saying? And you may not ever be completely healed from it, but you may be able to uphold it and be like, okay, I'm aware.
Mm-hmm.
I know what it does to my body. Because one thing my therapist tell me all the time when we're in therapy and we're talking about serious situations, she'll stop and be like, so Bonnie, tell me what your body doing. You know what I'm saying? Like what I could be verbally saying something but she want to know how my body's responding to what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you're not even aware of it because hell, sometimes I'm not even aware of it because I have so many different mechanisms and different, armors that I can put on and just be stone case solid and just be like, you know what, this is how I'm feeling today, but it took me years to overcome some of those patterns to be able to like, look, you know what? I'm coming in here butt ass naked today. Everything laid out on the table.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? That took years.
Mm-hmm. No, you're absolutely right.
It literally took me about 11 years before I could get to that point.
Yeah, because it's like, it's so uncomfortable when you have to be accountability for your own healing and your own trauma and like your own mess. It's uncomfortable. Like, I had to sit after therapy. I had to sit with it the other day. Right. And I was just like, damn, I feel like uncomfortable. Like it's not in the chest.
Right.
It's not in the stomach. It's just like in my shoulders. Like I just feel really uncomfortable, like on the edge. And that just showed me, oh, that's where it needs work. Like,
Nah, for real. I never forget the first day when it was like talking about like accountability and everything. And I would tell my therapist all the time, like, man, I don't have nobody to talk to. But I had friends, I had family. Right. But, I would always sit down on the couch and be like, nah, I can't talk to them because I already had played in my mind how everybody was going to be. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So then I wasn't holding myself accountable by taking the first step and taking the initiative to be like, look, I just need you guys to listen. Because a part of that was fear.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying? So that was almost like being the victim and already saying, well, I already know how everybody going to be, so I'm not going to say anything.
Right.
So it kept me complacent in that spot because, one, I wasn't ready because I hadn't even dealt with my own issues of accepting how I was.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? The first thing you got to do is accept it.
Yeah.
Then number two, you got to, figure out like how I'm going to deal with it, how I'm going to cope with it, but be real and authentic with it.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely,
you know what I'm saying?
Right.
But like for so long, I was in that little victim seat because it was just like, nah, you know what? Don't nobody understand.
Yes.
That's victim. You putting yourself in the victim seat.
Yeah. No, you absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? If I don't give nobody a chance to understand, or if I keep allowing myself to go to the wrong individuals to try to prove a point, that's not fair to everybody else.
Right.
So I felt like the only person I could talk to was my therapist.
Mm-hmm. I just shut down because it was, I was used to it.
Yep.
I was used to it. Like I would literally tell myself, even though I'm coming into school today or whatever the case may be, I would literally used to tell myself, my feelings don't matter.
Yeah.
Before I hit school, I would say my feelings don't matter. And I would have to change everything and everything that I'm feeling inside, just suck it up and push it down.
Then you got to ask yourself, if you don't care about yourself, then who will?
See, I didn't ask myself back then.
That's what I know.
Or else I wouldn't have been beaten.
And the only reason why I said that's why I know is because like I used to do the same thing.
Right.
Because you tell yourself, oh, it doesn't matter.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So you thinking like, it doesn't matter how I feel, but then you adapt to, well, as long as everybody around me is happy and I done did that to help them, then you know what? I'm okay too, because they're not bickering, they're not arguing or anything like that. You just feel like this is my life.
No, absolutely.
And then when you're alone, you wishing and hoping that somewhere out there in the motherland that somebody else got it better than you, but not realizing that you can change your narrative too.
Yeah, people don't really talk about that, especially when you're young an adult. It's because of fear.
Fear is like a bully.
Yeah, fear and self-doubt. It will put you in a situation, and it puts you in like relationships that you don't want to be in. Relationships
that have you on the edge. It really isolates you and make you become your own prisoner.
Mm-hmm. It'll have you fucking up relationships that probably shouldn't even been fucked up.
Self-sabotage.
Mm-hmm.
It's the drink on the first counter and you just, you grab it and you guzzle it.
Yeah. So I'm not going to lie. I have took some accountability in the past. Well, that's after my coach cussed me out and tried to kick me off the court.
Right.
And then I was like, oh, nah, this motherfucker serious. Like, because I know sports is my life.
Right.
And so I had to straighten up, get my attitude together. And that's why I was able to barely make it into college. But also, a couple of years ago, I think maybe 10 years ago or 7, one of the two. I had to take accountability of what I did in my past relationships and just apologize to folks.
Yeah.
Even though some of the stuff they did was fucked up, but I got to look at myself, and in that, I definitely had to apologize for that.
I know for me with past relationships, I disassociated so much that I couldn't even come back from.
Yeah.
Because half of the stuff I couldn't even remember.
Damn.
You know what I'm saying? And I used to disassociate so much that was a part of my everyday life, because that's how I got through. That's how I cope with everything.
Mm-hmm.
Everything.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? It was like one of those survivor kits that I needed with me because I couldn't stay present. I was so stuck in my past that I didn't know how to be in the present because I was trying to go from the past to the future. I didn't want to be in the present.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
I was told that too.
Yeah. I didn't want to be in that.
Bitch.
I didn't want to be in the present because the present was too much work and it was too fearful for me. And I felt like I couldn't overcome it. And so when you get like that, I felt so trapped in my own little world that I was like, man, there is no way out.
Yeah.
There is no way out. And so people don't understand when you coming and you talking. And when I finally had the courage and, we're just like, you know what? People really got to see me for me.
Mm-hmm. And
I'm like, either you take it or you don't. But I'm holding myself accountable. Mm-hmm. But I'm letting you inside my world on how I think, And, it took a while for me to get there, with the help of my therapist. My therapist was like, you know what? Who are the closest people to you? I want them to be in on your therapy. So the first time, call my friends. Some came in, some was on the phone. Right. You know what? And I was actually was able to be my authentic self in a safe place with the help of my therapist, because she knew me better than my friends. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. My friends only knew me they only knew me one way. Mm-hmm. The fun person, the one that laughed, the one that looked like ain't nothing going on. You know what I'm saying? Looked like I had it together.
So you're a half moon, a crescent moon.
Yeah, exactly. But not inside I was falling apart.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? So it was just like, that was the hard, that was one of the breaking points.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? But I'm thinking like, hey, I done held myself accountable to my friends. They know what's going on. But at the same time, after that day was gone and, a couple of weeks went by, I could see some of my friends was uncomfortable. But you know what? It wasn't uncomfortable in a way where they was like running away.
Right.
They didn't know how to cope.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? I was just like, hey, have you guys ever got questions? You know what I'm saying? You can just ask me or whatever. I'm not falling apart in front of your eyes, still trying to hold it together, per se. You know what I'm saying? But then the first time I got hospitalized, it was like, then you had those friends come out the woodwork, a different set of friends like, oh man, you know what? Maybe you shouldn't go to therapy. That's how you ended up in there. Well, you guys need to educate yourself, and I'm holding myself accountable, but I'm just like, you weren't the one behind the car trying to drive off a bridge either.
Right.
Nobody was with me that day.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
You're absolutely right.
It wasn't until I pulled up to go to work was like, you know what? The only thing that stopped me that day, because I was just like, man, I didn't call Marissa. You know what? Zoe was waiting for me in the parking lot because he had already beat me there. Mm-hmm. And I got in the car and I was just like, dude, I'm not right. I'm just like, I'm over everything. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? That was the first step of like, you know what? I can no longer carry this backpack that doesn't fit me anymore.
Right. Okay.
Because the backpack got too small, but I was still trying to grow. I had started doing my work. Mm-hmm. And when you start holding yourself accountable, there's a lot of stuff that comes up that's going to challenge you to the point where you just say, you know what? Man. I can't do this anymore. It's not getting any easier. I don't know if I'm gonna make it over the speed bump because I keep rolling backwards.
Oh yeah.
And every time you start rolling backwards, you get wrapped up, and the tighter it gets, the less you can breathe.
Damn.
You know what I'm saying? And it's like, you can have support, but if it ain't the right support and people telling you the wrong stuff, you feel like you ain't getting nowhere.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So then I had to adapt to another group, and be around my peers who were similar to me so that I was able to kind of open up. But that still took a while because you know what? Different environment, different people than what I'm used to being around.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I'm starting to be around people who was like similar to me, and they was able to talk about their outcomes and what they're going through, and everybody was no judgment and nobody trying to change their narrative. Like, it took me a while to go through that process, but I had to do it by myself.
Right.
And so I would get angry sometimes when people be like, so how is it going? What you doing today? Let's go out and let's have fun. Like, that's supposed to just take everything away.
Yeah. See, I don't think people understand when you're going through the healing point. When you're first starting off and you're working on your childhood trauma and just being accountable, like Bonnie said, you're going to have a lot of shit that come up. It's going to challenge you in so many ways, like self-doubt. For me, definitely self-doubt has kicked in, a little bit of fear kicked in, and then frustration.
Yeah.
I'm just like, motherfucker, I wish I would have done this when I was younger. Like, and then it's just like and it makes you, sometimes you do feel alone. You want to just close yourself up because in your mind, you're working through all the issues. Even when you go to therapy, you're like, working through all the issues, and therapy is good because they bring up shit and they point out shit that you miss.
Yeah. But it also challenges your self-worth. Mm-hmm. Therapy really challenges your worth, especially if you got a good therapist, because not all therapists out there are going to challenge you the way some therapists are. Yeah. But if you have a therapist that's going to challenge you and challenge your worth, and some days you may walk out that damn office feeling like shit, and they got you thinking about stuff and you feel stuck. Mm-hmm. That's a good therapist. Because you need those challenges, because what happens is our mind get hijacked to believe in what we already programmed it to believe. And it's not always healthy, and it's not always the correct way of thinking.
That's absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
And it's just like, sometimes, when, I know you done heard this when people say, well, maybe you need to think a different way. If it was that damn easy, I would. Yeah.
When you're already set in that motion and that fabric becomes who you are, and that thought process becomes who you are, it's hard. Like you said, it's hard to think outside that box. And it's not until you be challenged on something. Like my therapist, he plays the devil advocate.
Yo.
Sometimes I hate that shit.
Yeah.
But then I go home and I have to think. And then when I go home, it's almost like I'm constipated.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to put it out there. Yeah, it's almost like I'm constipated because I'm constantly in deep thought. And I'm telling myself, well, why didn't I not think of that?
Then you get mad at yourself for not thinking about it.
You get mad at yourself or frustrated about it because you didn't think about it.
Right.
And you just like, and then you go deep into it. And sometimes I have to like, what I do is like, I'm not a fast typer. I'm getting better. But what I do is I pull out paper and I write and I write and write. And then I just keep writing till I no longer can write until my handwriting looks neat. Because it starts off scribble scratchy.
Right.
And then it goes into neat.
So then that's when you already, you know what, you're not scrambling anymore. You know what you really want to say.
Yeah. And so then I started reading it and I'm just like, well, damn, I never thought about that. And then I started looking at like, no, I didn't take accountability for that. Like even as a child, people always say, you know, a prime example, if you become the mother, but you really the child.
Yeah.
And your mom becomes the child, which she is the mother. Like, you got to take accountability. Like, it's not your fault.
Right.
And so people like, oh, you got to take accountability for all your bad actions. No, it's the good too.
No, you're right.
It's the good and the bad. And things that happen, like, you're a child. What can you do? You know, like the issue between me and my grandma, I was a child.
You was a child.
So I can't look at it, even though for years it plagued me. And now, you know, I think, you know, my grandma came to me in my dream and I think she told me it was time to heal anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, you know, and then I look at that and I'm just like, damn, I didn't even take accountability for that type of shit. like, you know, you just look at a lot of things. Like for me, I look at a lot of things and I'm just like, what the fuck? What was I smoking? Like, I don't even smoke. And I'm like, where the fuck was I? And like you said, we're on a one-track mind.
Yeah, because I mean, that's how you kind of brought up though.
Yeah, yeah.
Because it's like this, whatever your family believed, they made you believe it too.
Yeah, no, you absolutely right.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, it was just, that's how it was back in those times.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just like if you did have an opinion, it was opposite of what everybody else was thinking. They would tell you to shut up, stop talking that nonsense, and you keep it moving.
Yeah, you keep it pushing.
You kept opinions to yourself.
And didn't realize that was trauma within itself.
Exactly.
But, you know, as kids, it's like we take on a lot of responsibility and we take on a lot of the accountability for our parents that we shouldn't have to take on. And the only accountability we should take on at that point is it's not our fault.
Right. Because, you know, kids take on the accountability like when their parents separate or get divorced. It's like, oh, it's my fault. No, it ain't your fault. Yeah. You just didn't know what all your parents was doing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I mean, like kids take that on and it weighs heavy on their shoulders. Mm-hmm. Even though they don't have the full narrative of what was really going on.
Yeah.
And, you know, sometimes like when you working with your own trauma and going through stuff in life and you have dealt with a lot of toxicity, you know what? That's one thing that you will put on yourself is other people mess. Mm-hmm. You make it your own too because you feel bad. Stop doing that.
Yeah, stop doing it. It's not, that's the part that you got to take accountability for. It's not your problem.
Yeah, it's not your problem. But you know what? It's just like we've all done it.
Yeah, no, we definitely all done it. I've done it more than once, twice, 3 times.
1,000, 1,500, 1,000 times?
Yeah.
And that ain't even a real number. I said 1,000, 1,500 times. You know what I'm saying? But like for real. Because you know what? It was an everyday thing, taking on other people's problems.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know how to say, you know what? Not my problem, not my issue, and keep it pushing. It became a worry of mine.
Yeah. Like, what can I do about it? How can I help? Like,
I don't want nobody to be mad at me.
I don't want nobody to be mad at you. Damn if you do, damn if you don't. And that's what I got.
Yeah, true.
You know, damn if I do, damn if I don't. And, you know.
Because, you know, sometimes people try to manipulate you or gaslight you and be like, you don't care. Well, what you want me to do about it?
They're good at doing that. You don't care about me. Well, apparently no one cared about you either.
Well, that's when you got to start asking people, am I supposed to care about you? Do I know you like that? Mm-hmm. And if you say nobody care about you Like you said, you don't care about yourself. Yeah. Because if don't nobody else care about you, at least you need to care about yourself. If you don't care about yourself, it's because you haven't dealt with issues. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, definitely haven't dealt with issues. And people don't really look back or just sit and say, why the fuck am I this way? That's another way. Take accountability. Why the fuck am I thinking this way? Why the fuck am I doing things this way? When is it comfortable for me to do this thing this way? Is it comfortable for me to be a doormat? No.
Well, for some people, you know what I'm saying, when they ask that question, it's kind of tricky though, because if they stuck in the victim role and they like to stay the victim, then they're gonna be like, well, I'm this way, and blame it on everybody else. I think that's a good question that you said, but I think people really need to ask themselves that question once they have done enough of their therapeutic work and have tools to use so they can actually answer that question accordingly. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, because they're not going to be able to answer that question if they haven't. Shit.
Right.
I can tell you, a couple of years ago, I couldn't answer that question. A year or so, 3 years ago, I couldn't answer that question.
Right.
All I know is my family was like this and, I had childhood trauma. But yeah, no. Mm-mm.
It's a tough pill to swallow. It really is. Like when you have to really invest in yourself, because sometimes it's easy to invest in other people because you ain't got to do the work.
Yeah, you don't got, you got to do the bare minimum with them. Yeah. Like with yourself, you got to, like I said, you got to peel that scab back, let it bleed in order to get to the issue of that wound.
And you can jump from a relationship to relationship to relationship. If you haven't worked on yourself and hold yourself accountable for your own actions, you might as well just stay by yourself and be by yourself. Because at the end of the day, if you're trying to get with somebody that haven't done their own work and they got issues too, and they know they have issues, but they just say, oh, well, or they cope, by alcohol or drugs, or they just good at being a manipulator or gaslighting. Look, it ain't going to work.
It ain't going to work.
It ain't gonna work.
Now, if you both unhealed, it may work a little bit, but
that's gonna be toxic.
Yeah, it's gonna be toxic. And you ain't gonna know it's toxic until you start coming out of it.
But no, if two people get together and they both unhealed, all you're doing is playing the gaslighting game. Mm-hmm. All you're gonna be doing is like blaming each other. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? That also go back to trauma bonding.
Oh, damn! It does go back to
trauma bonding. Go with everything.
It does, because you meet motherfuckers when you're unhealed, right? And y'all just going around in cycles and shit.
Yeah.
Like, you did it. No, you did it. No one's listening to each other, but we all got fucking problems and issues, right?
I think the one thing about relationships is like when it comes to accountability is if you got one person in a relationship that always want to call out your shit, but they say, well, and they turn around and say, well, I know I got stuff that I need to work on, but they always calling you out. That's a red flag.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you right now, that's a red flag. That's a red flag. It is.
Are you serious?
I'm dead serious. That's a red flag. Because you know what? Make it make sense. Because if you got stuff that you need to work on, but you always calling out the next person on what they ain't doing, and they struggling too, but then you walking around like your shit don't stink. Mm-hmm. Make that make sense.
It don't make sense.
Especially if they ain't even doing anything about their own mental. Mm-hmm. Make it make sense.
Because they don't see nothing wrong with their own mental, though. A lot of people don't.
Well, because now, day and age, people hide behind weed. They hide behind alcohol. They hide behind friends. Whatever is going to get them off of a high.
Yeah.
That's what they're going to cope with. And it becomes an addiction. Hell, you can have toxic friends and that can become an addiction. Because you like you need to be working on yourself. And if you're in a relationship and your friends are toxic and they're against whatever you're doing, you're going to run back to their toxic ass because they're going to make you feel good in the moment like you ain't did nothing wrong. They're going to make you forget about your problems. They're going to make you think that you're like okay when you may need the help. But they may be unhealthy too. But if they ain't dealing with their shit and you ain't dealing with yours, you all made for each other.
Yeah, they tell you what you want to hear. They don't tell you what you need to hear.
Right.
They tell you what you want to hear. It's easy to tell a person what they want to hear. You know what I'm saying? You're doing great. Nah, you doing shit. Your mental's on coming on hinge. Like, it's a lot of shit.
Well, then at the same time, too, you know, it's also unhealthy if you know you in a relationship with somebody that, you know, they may have like an alcoholic problem or they may have a drug problem, and you still support that person knowing good well, like, nah, you really need to go get help because you ain't dealt with your own trauma. And they don't want to talk about it, or they think that they're fine or whatever like that. You know, that can cause conflict in relationship because you kind of enabling this person to still continue to act this way because you want to be with them.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if they, like I said, if they call you out on your shit, and it could be simple stuff, or tell you that you're selfish and all this other stuff, it's like, that's a huge conflict. Like, where are you going to meet in the middle at?
There ain't going to be no middle.
Right. And that can go, that example also can go within family, with the workplace, whatever. People, you know, have struggles of, you know, addiction don't have to just be drugs or alcohol. You know, when some people are workaholic, that's an addiction problem.
Nah, you're right.
You running from the home and you running from yourself because you got to keep yourself so busy because you're scared to look in the mirror. You're scared to hold yourself accountable. So you become a workaholic. And then once you get used to that pattern, you like, nope, I gotta change it up again. I gotta find something else. A person may go and get a second job.
Yeah.
Or they may go join the gym, whatever, just to keep themselves so wore out that by the time they get home, because you know what? There ain't no such thing as just taking a normal nap. You got to wear yourself out to take a nap. You may get about 2 or 3 hours and you back up again because you high functioning. You know what I'm saying? Some people are high functioning, but struggling to the T that the only thing they wearing down is the inner part of their body.
Nah, you absolutely right.
Your heart rate go up. You start dealing with high blood pressure. Next thing you know, your circulation done. You got the gout. You know what I'm saying? Migraines. You know what I'm saying? But like, you just start just tearing down.
You just going down the list.
I'm just saying. It wears on you though.
Nah, you right.
It wears on you. You know, then you start, you know, you be so wore out in those times that, you know, you start forgetting shit. Your memory start going bad.
No, that is so true.
Because you don't have a schedule anymore. What you're trying to do is survive.
So a lot of people are in survival mode for a very long time and they don't even know it. They knew it when it first started, but then it becomes a custom.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm just doing this to, you know, you make excuses to make more money. I've been there.
Yeah. There was times where I just like, man, I just want to go in the woods, just go up into the mountains, no cell phone service, and just get away from everybody. Because I couldn't find anything that fit.
Yeah, a bear.
You know what I'm saying? Being up to like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning sometimes, take a nap during the day. Just be pacing throughout the house in the dark. You know what I'm saying? Just like mind won't shut off. Just trying to find something to make it work. Medication ain't working. It's just like, got to find something to work. Got to find something to work. You know, that get tiring after a while.
No, you're absolutely right. Now, I can tell you my memory would be shot. Oh,
mine's. I have to just wait for mine to come back half of the time. People be like, do you remember? I'll be like, give me some more hints. It's like playing a memory game. They be like, you was there. I was.
Yeah, it's like, where is my phone? My phone can be right in front of me. I'm like, where is it? Or talking to you, where is my phone? Look, bitch, you on it. Like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I've had that happen a couple of times. I
have put my phone in the fridge actually more than once or twice.
Now, there have been times where I get in my car and I know where I'm supposed to be going, but I've been drove past the exit and I'll be like, man, what was I supposed to be doing? Just be driving.
Yeah.
Don't even have a clue. And you know, for the longest, it took me to be okay with putting stuff in my phone because I took pride in being able to remember stuff.
Yeah.
Just in my brain manually until I start missing appointments, you know, doctor's appointments, therapy session. You know what I'm saying? I just like, oh, that was today. Cause you know what I'm saying? Like I took pride in just being able to remember it. It was like an OCD thing. I was good at it. But then when my mental started declining, I was just kind of like, now I got to put everything in my phone. And I still mess it up because sometimes I put stuff on the wrong date. You know what I'm saying? So I try to be more self-aware, you know?
Yeah, I have missed like chiropractic appointments. Like it's been bad. Like sometimes you're like, hey, we got this. I'm like, when?
Yep. You hella bad at that.
When is it?
Right. That's why you're called Grandpa. Grandpa to the T, aka Lucas.
Shut your face.
For real though. But I mean, like it just goes part of, you know, dealing with everything.
Yeah. And I think it's just like taking accountability for who you are and as a person and the things that you've even been through. And just have, I always say this every show, have compassion for yourself, because at the end of the day, like, we all going through a lot.
Yeah.
And just recognizing, I'm not saying play the victim, but have compassion. Like, yeah, I did go through that. Just, just have a moment. It's okay to have a moment.
That's what I had to learn, is like learning how to have a moment, because I took pride into not having a moment and just making sure everything get done.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That I had to learn how to take time out for myself.
Yeah. Fucking have a moment, because at the end of the day, we all make mistakes. We all have some stuff. We all have childhood trauma.
Yeah. We all dealt with grief.
We're all dealt with grief in some way or some form. Just a person or animal.
And one thing that we have to take accountability for and tell ourselves it's okay is that, when you watch TV and you watch these TV series and stuff like that, you always like, especially like the TV sitcoms, everything look like it's the good life. But you have to remember that you can't live up to TV expectations. That's what I used to go off of when I was a kid. Things like, man, they got it made.
Yeah.
Not realizing the blind side of it, But one thing I had to learn most, when you hold yourself accountable, you just have to tell yourself and validate your own self. It's like, I don't need to live up to anybody's expectations except for my own.
Right.
Never make your expectations too high to where you can't reach them.
The other thing I know about holding yourself accountable?
What?
It's being in the present.
You have to be in the present.
Because if you're not, I had that issue too. I go from the past to the future.
Yeah.
And I don't want to deal with that in between.
And you also realize when you stuck in the past, you don't hold yourself, you thinking you holding yourself accountable by taking blame for what happened.
Yeah.
Nope, that don't work either, But once again, skipping that present, jumping straight to the future. And then the future bounce your ass right back. You ain't go nowhere.
Like, dang it.
Stuck.
You're stuck. And it's almost like a cycle, and you get tired of it.
Yeah.
Like I was telling you this morning, I'm looking forward to healing.
Yeah.
Because to keep going in that cycle, bouncing back and forth like I'm on a roller coaster, it's exhausting. It's super exhausting. And I feel like it does play a major part on what I'm doing or what I'm trying to do in life.
Right. And just mental health in general is exhausting. But I mean, like, every day is a different day, but like having tools sometimes help your day be better than others. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So that's the only thing that's good about it. It's just being able to be self-aware.
Right. Well, it seems like we always go to an hour. That being said, I want to thank everybody for joining our page or going on iHeartRadio or other platforms and listening to us, giving some great feedback. For you new listeners, keep joining us. And if you have anything that you want to talk about, please let us know. And we're not afraid to have conversations. And I tell you this, if we do not know it, we'll find it.
Yes.
But, what we try to do is we try to take the stigma out of mental health and along with its diagnoses. And just say, let's have conversations. Like I said before, in order to get comfortable, you have to be uncomfortable. That being said, have a good day.
Peace.